Welcome, my lovey, to yet another episode of What's EFG Living podcast. That's with the exclamation point because I am that extra. Today, we are lucky to be with Julie Ann Meyer, who is blazing some trails behind the curtain, behind the orange curtain in Orange County. Julie, please tell us about what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. So I am the AchieveTV network president, and we have a streaming network. And our vision, our tagline for our network is that we are a vision distribution network. So that means that we get to provide a platform for people who have an audience, who would like to create an audience, who want to get their message out, their education, something positive and enlightening for the people around them. So that's what I do, and that's what I want to leave in the world. In order to affect a larger circle, it can't be just me.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. I mean, my entire business goal is to measurably increase joy in this world. And
Amen.
yeah, exactly. And we have the ability to do it. You know, when we think of the things we've done in our lives, and then in retrospect, like, oh, was I even trying that hard? Or wow, I really rubbed my knuckles raw, or whatever it was. But we make these things happen. And the reasoning behind it is, like you say, legacy. And I adore this topic because not everyone is thinking about that. And, you know, I feel like I have not raised my own children. I am the wicked awesome stepmother to several, but a lot of people center their legacy leaving around their kids. And when that's not present, and even when it is, I'm just wondering what's more. What about what I'm doing, not what people I'm influencing are doing? And then you get into I'm changing actual people. And the way you're doing it on such a larger platform is awesome. That is so fantastic. How are people able to tune in and check this out?
So we are available through the distribution of E360 TV. It's available. It looks kind of like Netflix. So you can find us on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, Android TV, Periscope, Twitch, a bunch of other places. And then the individual shows can be found on YouTube and Facebook. So there's a bunch of different ways to see us. It just depends on what your preference is.
I love it. So it's readily available, it's readily accessible. And one thing I like is that obviously you're curating who is presenting on this channel. So can you tell us something about what kinds of shows people can find?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted this to be a space for entrepreneurs in particular because I happen to be an entrepreneur. So, do what you
Holla.
know. And it can be a little bit of a lonely world. So what I wanted to do is create a space for all these different types of shows that are created by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. So I have a bunch of different topics, but the through line is entrepreneur, entrepreneur, entrepreneur. So there's shows about energy, about how you can raise your vibration. There's shows about Bitcoin. I've got a real estate show coming out soon. I mean, there's a little bit of everything. One of my personal favorites is a show about the near-death experience of entrepreneurs. And what he talks about and makes it funny is those oh crap moments when we're about to go under, we don't know if we're going to make it, and all these things that nobody wants to talk about, but we all experience. So he makes it funny and makes you feel like you're not alone. Plus, then there's shows like mine, because I have my own show as well. It's called Own Your Wellness. And the premise of that is there's more to health and wellness than broccoli and burpees, So there's a bunch of wellness shows. You have a little bit, it's like a poo-poo platter of edutainment, as they say.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And having watched your show, one of the things I love is I think we overuse the word accessibility, but your show is accessible and like immediately relatable. It's not something that I have to have done homework on and, educated myself up into a higher echelon. Your show is absolutely it should be, I don't want to say homework because that makes it sound like drudgery, but it is something that if someone wants to improve, especially as an entrepreneur, you mentioned it can be very lonely. And I think loneliness is another thread that we're dealing with in epidemic proportion as technology drives us further apart with the illusion of making us feel closer together with people. And with having the emphasis of the entire network on the entrepreneur, what kind, tell me some juicy amazement. I'm loving the idea of the guy with the near death, in quotes, experiences of the entrepreneurs. How do you see humor as a driving force, for instance, in the network?
I'm glad that you asked that because all of the shows I wanted them to be geared towards, instead of somebody talking at you, it's almost as if you are eavesdropping in on a conversation and
Nice.
enjoying yourself. And you happen to pick up these amazing tips along the way. So you don't feel like you're being schooled. You're just there to have a good time and you just happen to learn a few things while you're there. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of, mistakes that are made. And I always teach all the hosts to have fun with that because we're human
Hmm.
and you don't have to be perfect. Nobody wants you to be perfect. We want it to be accessible that you just feel like I can do that too, no matter what it is.
I love that. And I think that us showing when we are, maybe messing something up, fumbling over the mic, not for me, knocking the mic over, that is, I've got a PhD in doing that, always embarrassing. And yet, hey, it happens. But allowing, finding hosts and finding people who are going to connect with others, that is so gorgeous because it's like you're at the center of the web and each thing that goes out, it just like grows and grows bigger and bigger. It's just lovely. And I'm curious, what are some of the, I don't know if you had any humorous anecdotes or funny things that you anticipated going very smoothly, but then it wasn't anything like you expected?
Well, what's actually really fascinating? This is one thing that is interesting is this is a technology based business
Hmm.
and therefore we can expect there to be technology issues from time to time. And a lot of the hosts do their shows live. And I used to do all of mine live. And I still actually prefer to do it because it's just whatever happens, happens. There's no, oops, I should edit that out. It just is what it is. But the weird thing that seems to happen almost every single time, it's so odd to me, is whenever I, in particular, am interviewing another strong female host, and we talk about this beforehand, there's always a technology glitch. The camera goes out, the sound goes out, whatever the case may be, there's always something. And then you have to sit there and laugh and go, okay, well, let's talk to you, audience, by myself for a little while we get this figured out.
Well, it's because you have two strong women and like the energy, it just overwhelms the tech and it can't
I'm
compete.
telling you, every time it's the funniest, oddest thing. So now I've just come to expect that. The other day I was trying to pre-record with somebody and we literally, the StreamYard, because that's the platform we used to record on,
Mhm.
it kept glitching and we had to reschedule for the next day and it worked fine the next day, but that day it was not going to happen.
And I think there's a good lesson there in that sometimes when, sometimes, yes, you just have to persevere, you grind it out, you keep trying, you make it happen. But
Mhm.
sometimes we have to look at it and be like, okay, cool. This international platform is simply not available to me today. No matter how many zillions of other people are using it right now, it's just not going to work for us. And that's all right. And 24 hours later that's all right too.
Yeah, no problem. 24 hours later, that's the thing that I used to do all the time was just grind it out and just push through. And I realized it was so much easier when I just took a step back, took a breath and come back later. And all of a sudden, everything started working just fine again. And I'm not even just referring to technology. I'm just referring to work, life, all the things.
All the things. And sometimes taking a step back and a pause is what's needed. And
Mhm.
even if we don't feel that we've made any discoveries during that pause, something had to shift. Something had
Exactly.
to get in a better spot so that it could happen, and that's when you get into the fiction works where they have the alternate universes, like the Spideyverse and everything, where there's a zillion different parallels. And we don't need to know what exactly had to shift, just
Mhm.
to realize that, hey, it's cool. Give ourselves some grace, give the text some grace, and let it wrap itself back around to us. So let's see. So if I am a listener and I'm thinking, that sounds really wicked cool. I can see myself doing that. What would you tell you of your days of yore and someone who's thinking that sounds like something I would love to develop?
One is you should be a little bit scared. If you're not thinking big enough. So that's the number one thing. But the other thing too is to find somebody who can teach you what they know, because it's still the wild, wild west. And even though the distribution network that I work with has been around for 7 years, that's unusual. So if you're going to go out and find somebody to work with, make sure that they've been around longer than a year or two, because the problem is that they'll start off strong and then they'll fizzle out quick. And you started to create this audience, this following, all these things, and then all of a sudden you no longer have a platform. So it can be very discouraging if you don't do your research. So that would be, I just happen to luck into it.
Oh, I love it.
Thank goodness. So I've been very fortunate, but that is something that I wish I would have known. And I actually, somebody tried to poach me to another network and I almost went. And let me put it to you this way. Now, the person that tried to poach me is coming on to my network because the other one went under.
Whoops.
So yeah, I definitely want to be careful, and also make sure that you own your content. You don't want to sign up for a place where you don't own your content, because you want to be able to walk away with everything that you've created. So that's
Oh, those
really,
very good tips. And
whoo, that is number one. And plus, you can use it to market everything. You can create
mhm.
books from it. You can create content on social media, blog posts, all those different things that you just didn't have before. So there's plenty of ways to keep utilizing the same information.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And especially when we get the perspective, a year down the road, and things are
Mhm.
changing so rapidly in the fields of, broadcasting and sharing information online, but also our world is changing so rapidly. So it could be that something that you're airing this week, 6 months, a year from now, you want to go back and revisit. And like you
Mhm.
said, if you don't own your content, then you're SOL and it's not something you can really use.
Exactly. And that's the other thing too that I'd love to mention is anybody who is doing something like TV or a podcast, make sure you keep in contact with your past guests, because you just never know where those relationships are going to lead. I, in fact, am going to be featured in a book with Brian Tracy that's coming out next year that never would have happened if I hadn't had my show. So always keep those relationships going. You just never know.
That's fantastic. And also the reason that you dealt with the person, whoever it is that leads to whatever thing in the future, is because they had an idea that intrigued you or they
Mhm.
had a personality that vibed with yours, so there is that groundwork. It's already done. That's why I love having this podcast,
Mhm.
because it is such a blast to get peeks into other worlds, and then be like, well, oh, that's really interesting. Or, wow, hats off to you, but I don't think I could do that, or whatever, however it works. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but I do have a strong energy. And sometimes when I have people who I make the joke that I'm not actually kind, that like because I'm just so direct and I'm so not aggressive, but just forceful. And I feel so passionately and strongly about our ability to change our mental scape and our, the subconscious programming that we incorrectly interpreted. Even if you were the most genius 4 or 5, 6, 7 year old, you're putting together your blueprint based on a brain that's not finished cooking. So the ability for us to do that now so that we can feel yeah, oh, I do want to start my network, or
Mhm.
heck yeah, I want to write that book, or write the next book, or record the whatever. And without giving ourselves permission and feeling that we're worth the airtime,
Mhm.
then we just never do that, right?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing too that I think is really important is you don't have to know how. You just have to have a desire. You will figure it out, I promise. I had no idea what I was doing as far as running my own network, and yet I'm doing better than everybody else. So, hey, I didn't know. If I had stopped because I didn't know what I was doing, I never would be where I am already.
a
So,
hundred percent.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, I like recognizing when luck happens,
Mhm.
but being prepared to take advantage of the opportunity that's just happening to cross your path. I'm always saying everything's all around us, good, bad, ugly, wicked, all of it. And when that something that can bring you somewhere you didn't expect to go happens, and you are ready for it, and you've got the internal architecture in place to feel like you can step onto that stage, if it's a stage, or step into that
Mhm.
opportunity, that partnership, that collaboration. It's always very interesting to see how different people prepare themselves. So do you have any, whether it's mindfulness practices or health practices, any habits that you think our listener would benefit from hearing about?
I love that question because I love to ask that question myself because I always want to peek inside somebody else's life to see what they're doing to make it work for them. And I would say my number one practice that has actually made a huge difference in all aspects of my life is when I wake up, I thank the universe for the unexpected miracles that are going to come my way. And then I write down 3 different things that I'm grateful for every single day. And I try and write different things. I'm sure I've repeated it somewhere along the
Sure.
line, but it just opens up my awareness to all of those good things that are already there, like you mentioned, because it is there. We don't always see it,
Right. Right.
but
We
it's
may not be
there.
paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's my number one thing. And then there's 2 things. One is the importance of water. We need to be hydrated. It helps our brains too, and every other function. I mean, it's just unbelievable how underrated water is. Plus, we're made up of mostly water. Why wouldn't we want to keep ourselves hydrated for that purpose alone? And sleep.
Yeah.
This idea of I'll sleep when I die. Yeah,
Oh,
well, then you're gonna die sooner if you don't. So
you're going to die sooner, and probably in more discomfort, because that's
exactly.
when we do restore. That's on a cellular level, literally. That is when we
Literally.
restore ourselves. And as someone, who suffers from anxiety and ADHD and depression, it's sometimes sleep is so elusive, and just having a focus and an intention to take care of our bodies in that way is a gorgeous, gorgeous reminder. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, tell us how, so if I'm on my Fire Stick, I'm just gonna look up, Achieve TV.
E360 TV, and then you scroll
Okay,
down, it looks like Netflix, and
okay.
you'll find Achieve TV under there, like
Oh,
a
that's
genre.
fabulous. It's
Yeah.
your own genre. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking your valuable time to educate us about this wonderful new way that people can get their messages out. And
Absolutely, thank you.
how can people get in touch with you other than, of course, watching your show?
The catch-all way is ownyourwellness.net. That's how you can reach everything about me, including social media.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Julianne Meyer, for appearing here live on ZFG Living Podcast. All right, let me stop the recording.